Hello, my name is Garrett Werner. I'm a writer living in Los Angeles. Thank you for tuning into another chapter of Influence by Mary Kay and Ashley Olsen.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
We all appreciate it. The unbelievable reception we've been getting for this audiobook project. I know the girls are just ecstatic about it.
We can barely contain ourselves.
I've been smiling for a month straight.
Yeah, and so with so much positive reception, we're just going to keep moving forward with a new chapter. The next chapter is Lauren Hutton?
Yes,
That's
Lauren
correct.
Hutton.
Well, I'm afraid I'm unfamiliar with Lauren Hutton. Is that?
Yes, Hutton.
Well, I don't. I'm gonna quick Wikipedia her if you don't.
She's a model.
Yes, first and foremost a model. But she's also been known to act. She starred in Paper Lion and The Gambler.
Okay, well, I've never heard of those movies, but I take your word for it. Let's just dive, I guess, right into it. Sorry, let me shift these around. So, again, if this is your first time listening, I don't know why it would be. I'll be reading for Lauren Hutton, and Ashley, you'll be
Yes.
reading for yourself, and then Mary Kate will be reading, obviously, for herself.
Obviously.
All right, then let's dive right into it. Lauren Hutton from the Mary Kate and Ashley book, Influence.
Let's start at the very beginning. Can you tell us where you were born and who first discovered you?
I think you discover yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And you have a strong sense of self.
I was a poor southern white girl. We weren't born in a barn, but we got there soon enough. My mother went to school with Gloria Vanderbilt, and I went to school with a bunch of deep country kids, seriously rural, or kids that were just first-generation Floridians coming straight from New Jersey, old-time crackers and first-generation everybody. It was a little dangerous amongst teenagers.
So you had street smarts at a young age.
Swamp smarts is what I'd call it. I hadn't really seen any streets before I moved to New York. More like dirt roads.
You had experience, though. Moving and traveling was a form of education in itself.
Well, I was born and lived in Charleston, South Carolina, then Miami, then the swamp outside of Tampa, helping to raise my 3 half-sisters.
Who was the first photographer you worked with?
Dick Avedon. Diana Vreeland asked Dick, who had seen me 3 times and not booked me, to shoot me. She saw something in me. Basically, what she saw was that I was one of those kids who didn't wear bras or too much makeup. I was a newfangled youthquake. I wasn't one of those big, giant European models. She had seen us in the street and wanted to catch that moment. So when I got to Dick, I wasn't up to the quality of his models. I didn't know as much as the other girls. He asked me where I'd come from, and I told him, and we developed a technique of me running and jumping, like a kid in the swamp. So all my early pictures are of me jumping. Finally, when I landed, I learned how to model.
And you're still modeling.
Yes, I am. I just did a Lord & Taylor campaign.
Do you think you changed the ideal aesthetic of a supermodel at the time?
I think I made it more natural as I used less makeup. The makeup was very heavy in those days, and I looked bad in a lot of makeup. I looked bad in heavy eyeliner. We did our own makeup in those days. More importantly, I changed fashion when I signed my first Revlon contract.
How so?
Contracts didn't exist at the time. Campaigns didn't exist. I saw the sports guys getting contracts, and I figured we should too. It made it about money rather than prestige, and that changes everything.
Yes, but those were beautiful magazines back then.
In New York, I was waitressing at night to keep myself alive, and then I did Christian Dior.
Dior was your first ad campaign.
No. At the time, they didn't have campaigns. I was a Dior New York showroom model. I'd finally learned to look in the want ads to get a job, and I was determined to never be a cocktail waitress again, because it was too debilitating. People would look at you funny and think you were a B-girl, and I wasn't one of those.
And they felt free to talk to you in a certain way?
Yes, and treat you disrespectfully. And you had to grin and take it, because you were working for tips, and $600 back in 1962 was a tremendous amount of money. But I was willing to do any modeling job just to save money so I could get to Africa.
Were you looking for a man at this point? Or did you feel like you always needed to take care of yourself?
When I came back to New York, I had teas. And I had already one bad man, twice my age. It was a classic situation where I had never met my father and I was looking for that figure. And I didn't want to waste my time. So when it came to men, I was looking for something else, for art and museums and travel. The outside world. Tribes and bugs and nature and stars. A guy had 15 minutes to make his case at tea. I was looking for someone who was interested in all these things, someone I could learn from. More brains than beauty. One of my goddaughters says I invented online dating. It was like that, except it wasn't on a computer. You talk to someone for a few minutes and then blow them off. Until I met this one guy. He was the 39th T. Maybe he was the 40th. His name was Bob, and he knew about everything I wanted to know about. And thank God I followed my instinct. And him.
He taught you a lot.
Boy, he was my Aristotle. He taught me that men's and women's brains evolved from their genitals. We were simple creatures that evolved into more complex beings, into two sexes. And that wasn't for fun. We saved each other. Men are short-term hierarchical thinkers. Women are about feeding and warmth and safety, and it's beautiful. You need both of those in the world. We're long-term linear thinkers, and I learned that living with 9 hunter-gatherer tribes. But men are fun. They have ideas, and they're wild. They're an exotic animal. I just love men.
Me
I
too.
love men.
They're a whole other species, and a whole other animal. They have different brains from us, but be careful
Because you have to know what to pull from them, and you have to know what you're giving them.
That's true, but what we're talking about gets relearned all over again by each succeeding generation of women, if it gets learned at all. So it feels almost entirely new with your generation. It's hard to know without going through it. Experience. A lot of women stay with guys they shouldn't out of pity. I think most of my goddaughters had learned that. Intimacy is so intimate for us, and that is the natural double standard.
Define natural double standard.
Well, we are meant to know the seed that we're taking, because nature wants to make a masterpiece every time. We're genetically bioengineered to make a masterpiece. But I think men are built to spread their seed all over. A girlfriend of mine wrote a song line that says, I fall in love every time I see the ceiling above me. She's saying she falls in love every time she's intimate with someone. And I think a lot of girls do that. But I don't think it's the same case with men. We really have different agendas biologically.
Especially in relation to intimacy.
We've got to be very careful about who we have sex with. So you better know whom you're spreading the seed with. Even if there's no seed being spread.
I love that you love men so much, and you can still keep your beliefs about yourself in the forefront of your life.
Well, I'm always looking for guys my own size. Mentally.
I think that's great and totally true.
There's so much pressure on us women because of all that we've talked about. And so much pressure on us as people. I'm looking at you both now, who've been celebrities since childhood, and you've weathered so many storms. We're talking tsunamis. I'm very proud of you. Where are your people from?
We are part Norwegian, French, English, Italian, and Sioux Indian.
Oh, so you have a great tribal mix. That's one of the reasons that I was popular. It was because everybody could identify with their people in my face. That's the greatness of America, is that we're all tribes. But more important than knowing ourselves as tribes is knowing ourselves as women. All women need to know is what's happened to us women in the last 3,000 years. I always say there are only two races, men and women. I came to that idea when I lived alone on the Bowery, when it was a cracked out avenue in the 1980s. When I would wake up, that would be the first thing I noticed. There's only men and women. We should share everything we learn.
Knowledge.
It's the most important thing we can do. More important than personal love, more important than children, more important than money. It's the most important thing we can share.
It just occurred to me that this interview is not going to be about fashion.
No, there's no such thing as fashion. Fashion is an idea to make you think you're not in it all the time. Fashion is what you're offered 4 times a year by designers, and style is what you choose.
But I like that you transcend fashion. Your story and your talk with us today isn't just fashion. It's about your life story, how you've influenced us, your beliefs, and about influencing women in general.
Good, good. Thank you.
Thoughts from a wise woman. We should call your interview.
That's funny. The very first interview I ever did was with Eugenia Shepard from the New York Times. She was a wonderful, kind fashion editor, and she asked me what I wanted to be. I think I was 22 or 23 when I gave this interview. And she said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I thought for a second, and then said, "I want to be a wise woman. I didn't want to be a rich woman or a married woman or this woman or that woman. I wanted to be a wise woman." And everybody laughed at me when they saw it in the paper.
Why?
They thought I was being pretentious, but I was real. I still want to be one. I guess they thought our wise women were little crones who lived in the woods.
They were wrong. Wise women are beautiful women who have experienced a lot and have a lot to give back just with words.
Wow, and so that's it, huh?
We
Yeah,
didn't
that was
have
a
a lot
brief
to say
interview.
after that.
I mean, she kind of descended into sort of traditional gender roles and sort of first
What
wave
do you
feminism. I don't
say?
really know the waves of feminism.
Yes, perhaps it's wise if you don't speak on the matter.
Right. Okay. A briefer interview with what was her
Lauren
name? Lauren
Hutton,
Hutton.
get it right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, well that was a quick one. I assume that we'll just keep plugging away, right? I'm really excited for some upcoming chapters where you two interview one another.
Yes, those are fun chapters.
What will you do during those chapters?
Well, I guess I'll just sort of introduce them and then let you two take it over.
That sounds fine by us, right, Ashley?
No, I'm Mary Kate. You're Ashley.
Of course, I'm so foolish.
No, don't worry about it, girls. I'm sure that happens all the time. So from all of us here, thank you for tuning in to another chapter of Influence by Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. We'll see you next chapter.
Goodbye.
Farewell.